Yeah, she's got some nice long hair.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Welcome back. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube and rate the show 5 stars everywhere you get your podcast. Just search for Unbearable Sports. So, this is show number 2 on the Senior Bowl and show number 2 that Johnny PayPal could not be with me today. Still dealing with some of those car troubles. So today I'm flying solo and breaking down the 10 defensive playmakers that I thought were just overall risers this week for the Senior Bowl. So it's not just what did we see during the game. It's actually even more important with what happened in the practices and why a lot of people are going up some of these draft boards. So let's just get this show on the road. Let's get this thing started. And let's start with number 1. So Johnny PayPal's not here. He would love to announce this player, but number 1, and this isn't in any particular order, but Keanu Benton, defensive tackle out of Wisconsin. Before all this happened, he was projected to go in the 4th round. But now you're seeing a lot of people love what he was able to put on tape. During the game, he was good. He was able to, a couple times, he was able to get skinny. And also, I want to say this too. I actually don't have the stats. Is it like the NFLPA Bowl had better stat takers than at the Senior Bowl, which is crazy. There's no defensive stats that I can find out there, so I don't have them at the ready. But I do know Keanu Benton played well, got skinny at a couple plays, and was able to kind of squeeze through some of those holes. But it's not just because of that. Some scouts actually have him listed as a second round player because of what they saw in the Senior Bowl. Great practices, and another scout was saying physically dominant all week and excelled against the run. We need help on the interior. Now, if we get a Will Anderson, could a Keanu Benton be someone in the second? Personally, I don't really see it. Not saying that I don't see it in Keanu Benton. I just don't see the Bears getting a defensive interior player with that second pick. I think that would be better used with a wide receiver of some sort. But it'll be really interesting to see where Benton out of Wisconsin ends up going overall after a very good Senior Bowl week. But let's go to number 2. And number 2 is someone that I'm really excited about. I want to watch more tape on him. He really didn't perform too much at the Senior Bowl. I don't even think that he was out there playing, but it was really more in the practices. And that is, let's see if I can say this right, Itamiwa Adibare. And that's, I'll give myself a pat on the back for that one. I'm not going to say it again, but he's the guy out of Northwestern. He is a defensive end, but he comes in and he starts playing defensive tackle. They notice that he built up. He added a lot more weight to him. And now he's lining up at 3 tech. He's lining up at defensive tackle. And I'm looking at a lot of scouting notes, and people are just in love with what they saw. He has the potential to be an elite 3 technique in the second round, in the 3rd round. But what I really like what he was able to do was kind of silence all this tweener talk, because he was kind of that big enough to play the defensive end, but he's almost too big to play defensive end, but he's not big enough to play D tackle. And he's like, hey, don't worry, I'll figure this out for you. I'm going to be a D tackle. He's got speed. He's been absolutely dominant. And he started a fight during practice because he bull rushed Jarrett Patterson out of Notre Dame, a very good guard, pushed him back like 10 yards and started a fight because he just absolutely whooped a very good guard in the draft. He's someone that the Bears should definitely be looking at. He's going to be climbing up draft boards now because he's no longer that tweener. I really want to watch some of the tape, specifically him on the defensive interior, because that's how he's making a lot of his money. But let's keep going with the defensive line. The next player, I already know that this is a favorite for a lot of people that watch the show, Will McDonald IV, out of Iowa State, edge. He really solidified himself as like a round 1 defensive end, because a lot of people just thought he was a pass rusher. Now, he still struggles a little bit against the run, but when you see his speed, when you see his bend, 6'3", 236, so you want to see a little bit more weight, but honestly, You saw how dominant he was during the practices, was the best edge rusher there. There's a lot of good edge rushing talent out there. Here, I could pull up the list. And when you have a player like that, that is just absolutely dominant, and he's going next to Derek Hall, Isaiah Foskey, who's the edge out of Notre Dame, Derek Hall out of Auburn, Andre Carter out of Army, Zach Harrison out of Ohio State, and he's able to really prove that he's the best one out there. That's really saying something. So Will McDonald, I think he played himself out of the Bears, unless we still had our first pick in the second round, which is really good for him. And I love to see what he was up to. Like 35-inch arms, absolutely very good out there, very disruptive. So Will McDonald, my third riser of Senior Bowl. Now, a lot of these players, they really didn't play. But this player was someone that really shocked me at the edge position. Now, for those watching on YouTube, you can see the last place edge. The consensus board was Lonnie Phelps, edge out of Kansas, was the 377th ranked edge player, or ranked player in general on the consensus board. But I got to tell you, that guy at the defensive end spot, Lonnie Phelps out of Kansas, is my fourth guy that impressed me. I didn't hear much out of practice that he was dominating, but during the game, you turn on that game, and every single time that you saw it, just dreads and white helmet with the Jayhawk on it, and you saw him dominate. He's going against really good prospects out there, and he's showing them all up. That's why, to me, Lonnie Phelps Jr. out of Kansas, didn't know who you were, but now you're on the map. Now you are someone that people are going to be looking at your tape a little bit. From 377, now who's ever the Kansas scout or the Kansas area scout is going to have to put that tape on a little bit more and say, do we have somebody here? Is this the not James Harrison, but the James Houston guy out of the Detroit Lions? He reminded me a lot of him, where he's aggressive and just really bull rushed a lot of those players. Hopefully the Bears can get him 7th, 6th round. Should still be a late round unless he does great at the combine. Let's keep on moving down. This player we did not talk about. We are moving over to the inside linebacker position, and that's Daiyan Henley, linebacker out of Washington State. Now, this guy, he's still a good player. 83rd overall on the consensus board before going into the Senior Bowl, but there was a lot of middling linebackers out here. We talked about Overshown, really didn't play during the game, but Henley played during the game at that inside linebacker, and a lot of scouts are saying Henley was the best linebacker for the entire week of the Senior Bowl practice. A guy who came in with less hype, but he showed up and was really good in the run and passing game. There's a lot of questions on, can he cover? Because he's also he's a decent sized linebacker. But honestly, he just kind of solidified that he's a day 2 player, has very phenomenal speed. And I believe it was him that has a film on him pushing over the Florida guard, who's one of the best in the league, just absolutely demolishing him with his own guy. So honestly, this guy was great. So Henley, Washington State linebacker, really solidified himself as a 2nd round linebacker in a state where we don't really know where a lot of these linebackers are going. So this is what happens at the Senior Bowl, though. The Senior Bowl really helps solidify where people should go. Because right now, if you look at one draft board and then you go to another draft board, there's so much variance between them, because we need these events to kind of help shore up who's legit and who's not. And Daiyan Henley looked every bit of being legit. So let's go to my next player. Now, in the preview, we didn't really talk a lot about the secondary players because they're always hard to watch. But there's one player that was always kind of considered the other South Carolina cornerback. But he really showed, hey, I'm not just the younger brother, so to speak. I'm the real deal. And that is Darius Rush, cornerback out of South Carolina. This guy weighed in at 196, so not great, but 6'2" and 33-inch wingspan. So honestly good size for a cornerback because almost 200 pounds at corner ain't great. It ain't bad, but 6'2", 33-inch arms, very good stuff out there at the cornerback position. And he's made a lot of money this week. And actually, I don't even have him on. That's right. I don't have him on my list, but he was a player that really showed out and really impressed a lot of people out there. So Darius Rush, South Carolina. And it was just one of those things where every single rep he did well. And also, he showed off incredible speed. I heard a lot of scouts talking about even when he got beat, he had the recovery speed to still get there. And he wasn't out of the play because of his speed. Now, that might sound a little alarming, but it's good to see that he at least has that speed. So to me, I think that he really moved up in this draft. And I've actually seen him be a top 50, top 30 type of a prospect easy. So Darius Rush, South Carolina, really showed what he's capable of at that cornerback position. But now we have a handful of other prospects. I can just kind of fly through some of these players because now defense is always really hard to talk about because it's always difficult to see. And like I said too, we don't have a lot of those stats out there. But safety's not a huge need for us Bears, but I do want to at least bring this player up, and that is Sidney Brown, safety out of Illinois. 97th overall safety on the consensus big board, but he still seemed to be flying under the radar. He's 5'10, 213, but has incredible speed and incredible quickness at that safety position. So really showed himself out. His brother also, Chase Brown, the running back out of Illinois. I've heard middling reviews on him where some people liked him, some people didn't. But really, Sidney Brown, the safety out of Illinois, really turned a lot of heads. I think he's going to be out of the range for the Bears because do we really want to be drafting a safety in the second or third? But I'm just reporting, did a very good job out there. So maybe he falls, just someone to keep an eye out on. And he's from the great state of Illinois. So we have to at least talk a little bit about him. But I got three more prospects left. One of them is Carl Brooks, defensive tackle out of Bowling Green. Performed well. Weighed in 6'3, 303, and just overall good performance. Had a sack. It was really because of the coverage, but still played well. Overall was 133 rank on the consensus board. Do I think that he's played his way up to a third round or second round pick? No, I think because Keanu Benton had a very good week. But overall, just saying, good week out of him. And the last two are some very interesting prospects. One is Keon White, the edge out of Georgia Tech. Now, this player too, he's similar to Adibare, out of Northwestern. I probably just butchered it again, but like the guy out of Northwestern, White, very, very versatile. Can play inside, can play outside. Now, even though that he didn't play in the game, you know it's good when he's a consensus winner and they said it's because of his personality. Like, executives were saying, "This guy's just a pro." I don't know what he said, but people were like, "This guy, I want him on my team." The way that he carries himself, the way that he conducted himself during the interviews, because this is a gigantic interview process. He's at 89th overall on the consensus board, but I see a lot of people giving him a first round grade. I think ultimately he's going to be an early second rounder. That's where I feel he's going to kind of end up. But I know a lot of teams are saying this guy's a winner because of his attitude. It's just a very impressive thing to hear because you really don't hear that specifically about someone's attitude. And they're like, this guy, he just gets it. Professional approach impressed a bunch of executives. Just absolutely interesting to see. But Keon White overall, he's a larger player, like I said, a tweener, but also a very, very good athlete. Can play the defensive end spot, but can also play interior. I always get nervous about those tweeners. To me, you just need to pick a spot because if you're right in between, it usually doesn't work out for you. So that's my biggest concern on a Keon White, but a winner this week due to a lot of the interviews. But my last player, the last and 10th, we have not talked about this player at all on this show, and that's linebacker Ivan Pace out of Cincinnati. Now, this guy, think of him like a Malcolm Rodriguez, second Lions reference of the show, but think of him similar to that. Very undersized. Was 110, 231 though, so built, rocked up. Even though that he's undersized from a height perspective, very good play out there, very consistent, had a nose for the ball. And I believe I saw a stat that he had 10 tackles overall. Ivan Pace, very good linebacker. Overall, 132. I think that he starts moving up and creeping up more into that kind of third, maybe fourth round. I could see him as a potential fourth round player because I think he's a very good special teamer, or he can be a good special teamer, but it's really that undersize, that shortness that is going to scare off a lot of these teams. But what he showed is, listen, I can make plays. I've also heard too, he was able to line up in a blitz role during practices and was able to dominate. And that's what Cincinnati linebackers are really asked to do a lot of times, is to be and kind of play that attacking role. And Ivan Pace Jr., very good at attacking the line of scrimmage and attacking people in front of him. So that's my quick 10 winners on the defensive side of the ball. There's a lot of people out there. Let me know who you think I missed down below. Who shined out for you? Who have you heard? Who did you see that really kind of stuck out to you on this defensive side of the ball? Lots of players I could have gone to. This was a challenging one to put together. But make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube. Also, rate 5 stars. It helps the show tremendously. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we're out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair, and you know that she's a bad chick.